Arya, in my opinion, is the best player in the LJL. Hell, he could get picked up by an LCK team. That's how good he is right now. In fact, there has been a couple of whistles about that. And I really,
Okay.
please don't take him. Really want to keep him there.
Hi everyone, it's Tom with another interview ramping up to MSI, and today we're going to be talking about the LJL and the representative Detonation FocusMe, or DFM as everybody knows it. And with me here to talk all about DFM is Nymaera, who is an English caster covering the LJL. Before anything, Nymaera, can you just give a quick introduction about what you do and how long you've been doing this and why you're the expert for the LJL?
What do I do? Wow. Okay, so effectively at the end of 2019, kind of around about December, I thought, all right, I've kind of played League of Legends for a while and I talk about it quite a lot. How about I talk about it in front of an audience? So I started casting around about January, February time of 2020, and I decided, hey, LGL is a region which I've followed on and off for a little while, and there's no English coverage. So how about I get together with my brother and a friend of ours and cover it? So now a year and a half later, we've covered 3 splits of the LGL as an unofficial English broadcast, and we've had a really good time of it.
Yeah, and for people who want to follow that specific channel, it's LGL _ unofficial, I believe, on Twitter. Or is it officially unofficial?
It's LGL unofficial on Twitter, and on Twitch it's _ officially _ unofficial. So
I'll put all the proper links in the description of the video below, so everybody can find it there. But Nymaera, we're here to talk about DFM. And obviously, they missed out on Worlds last year, where they got toppled by V3. But Detonation FocusMe has been such a staple name for Japan in the international scene as well. So can you talk to me about heading into the spring split? Were there any big changes for them? What was going on in their team before they started the competition?
Okay, so this is probably going to take a large amount of the interview up because we're going to keep referring back to this because it's a huge change for this roster.
Okay.
Faker is the longest tenured player in esports history to one team on SK Telecom.
Mm-hmm.
The second and third most are Seros and Utapon from DFM. So Seros is the mid laner, Utapon is their bot laner, and Seros has been subbed out this split. Of course, DFM did try this before with Ramune a couple of years ago, but this year they brought in this hotshot superstar Korean solo queue rookie who had played on CGA, one of the other LGL teams, for a couple of years in the LGL. They brought him in, and they replaced him in the mid lane. Mm-hmm. And Arya has been an absolute powerhouse. So not seeing Seros there is going to be a big change because, those of you who watched that C9 series, when they're in the same group together, and then the EDG series when they got knocked out. I think that was 2018 Worlds, that one. It was Seros, and he was kind of like, the emperor of the team. That's his local nickname. But they had replaced him heading into the split with Arya. However, Seros is a resident, Arya is currently not. So they had to then take out one of their other Korean players. So that's either Steel or Gang as their regular support, and they replaced their support Gang with a player called Kazu. Kazu was one of their coaches, used to be an ex-pro player, and they kind of slotted him to the support role and said, he'll do.
He'll be fine.
And he's been, he'll be fine. And in fairness, he has been fine, but we'll get to him a bit later because he's probably the weak point of the team, but it is kind of just balancing out the fact that Arya has been such an upgrade in this mid lane.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that is a big dynamic shift coming into the split. Now, the team for a very long time had been the representative, as I mentioned before. Were expectations high as well heading into the split? Like, okay, these guys are probably going to be the finalists or the winners?
Yeah, so effectively, to kind of adding a little bit more context again. So when V3 beat DFM in summer and then got completely rolled in play-ins, partly because they had rookies at Worlds, and that's always a bit of a awkward phenomenon. But the LGL has not really had international success for a while, if ever. After that tournament, I was just like, right, okay. The only roster which will ever do anything from the LGL is DFM as it currently is, with Arya in the mid lane. So we kind of called this coming out of the summer split. So coming into spring, we're just there and was like, who the hell is going to stop these guys? Because they have the best top laner in Ebby, one of the best junglers, at least the most consistent in Steel, the out-and-out best mid laner, and maybe best player in the league of Arya in the mid lane, and then the best duo lane of Utapon and Gang. Of course, the whole Gang thing is... this is where things kind of get tripped up a bit, because Gang is one of the best supports in the region, if not the best as well. Having Kazu in there and breaking up that long-time synergy of Utapon and Gang was a worry. We were worried that if this team was going to fall apart, it was Arya not slotting into the team because it's a very different style to Seros, where, Arya does play Assassins and he does play a lot of oddball picks, where Seros just plays Heimerdinger, Karma, and Ziggs. But they did manage to come together with a really coherent performance, and kind of coming into spring, we thought, okay, if that mid laner works out, they're probably going to be finalists, and they were more than finalists. They just completely rolled the league.
Right. So that turned out to be how it went eventually with the team. They completely dominated. I saw in the regular split they only lost like 2 games or something like this. It was pretty astounding.
There was one versus Rascal Jestedom when they actually switched back in Seros and Gangs. They kind of went back to their legacy lineup, and they played Heimerdinger and they got Udid, and they didn't really do very well. And the other one was against Sengoku, so that happened just before it, and that was with their 2021 roster with Arya and Kazu in there. And we spent many hours kind of raging about the draft. It was very arrogant. They kind of last picked some solo kills. They last picked for their solo lanes like Akali and Lucian into a team that they were just really bad into. And kind of DFM's arrogance kind of gave them that L.
Right. So talking about their split performance in general, not specifically about individual games, but what has been the trend with this team? Has it overall, even though they've been very dominant in the entire split, has there been an upwards trend in terms of synergy in this team finding a playstyle they are very good at executing? How is this team overall in the spring split?
That's a really interesting question, because if you'd asked me that question about V3 last split, I could give you a really clear answer, because they were all about enabling their mid layer and weaponizing Ace. DFM, and the reason why I think that they could do well internationally is because they didn't really have a single playstyle. They played stuff like occasional assassin mids, Akali tops, stuff like that, and occasionally they do stuff like Gragas and Seraphine in those solo lanes too, and kind of play around more of a bot lane team fight centric style. In terms of how they've developed over this split, though, which is obviously the original question, I think it's mainly about how they've connected their solo laners with their jungler steal. Because Ebby has, for the longest time, been the focus of DFM. 2020 spring, when DFM won that split 2 and sadly couldn't go to MSI, it was all about getting Ebby ahead, making him play carry laners and stuff like that. His set, by the way, is absolutely phenomenal if that ever comes back into the top lane meta. There was one game where he put someone down 60 CS with it, and he hadn't touched a single CS. He was just incredible at that point. Wow. But this split, it's been more about the development of how these solo laners really work around their jungler, because a couple of times actually in the early split, they were getting solo kill because they just didn't understand their jungler tracking the other jungler and how they were moving about the map. But that's really improved as the split's gone on, and they've kind of sorted that out from what it seems.
Yeah, and we talk obviously about MSI, where a lot of teams and from regions are coming together, and when a team is so dominant as DetonatioN FocusMe is, especially in a minor region, I'm inclined to think, okay, well, this is maybe a small bubble, and how are they going to operate outside of this? And looking at MSI itself, we see them in a group which is pretty stacked with Dom1 Kia. There's Cloud9 as well, and there's Infinity Esports from the LLA. Now, I'm not immediately going to say that there's no hope, but what are expectations for this team heading into MSI, and how are they going to stack up against other international teams?
So this is going to be an answer in 2 parts, because the first part is they're going to get rolled at MSI. Third place is probably where they're going to look at. Why is that, and why is it actually not important? DFM haven't actually completed Exodia yet. They're waiting on like the left leg of the Forbidden One for Gang to come back into the roster, because between spring and summer, Steel, their jungler, is going to gain residency. The whole reason they brought Arya in is because Steel was going to become a resident this year, so they could bring in someone to replace Seros whilst keeping the core of this roster, which has performed very well in the LGL, and occasionally internationally too. There was that one time they went 4-2 in a group stage and then sadly couldn't quite get out from the play-ins. But when we finally get Gang back in, who is maybe the second best player in the region, you're going to have this whole best player in every role from this minor region. Yes, it's going to be 3 Korean imports, but still has, again, earned that residency to be considered a Japanese player. So we're looking towards summer and saying, all right, okay, so if summer's when we're really peaking, what does MSI mean to us? What it really means is that we can avoid, hopefully, what happened to V3 in summer in terms of a lot of rookies getting shaken on stage, players like Reiner and Boogie turning up internationally and just kind of getting rolled. V3 just didn't really slot together. This is super important for Arya, because Arya, in my opinion, is the best player in the LGL. Hell, he could get picked up by an LCK team. That's how good he is right now. In fact, there has been a couple of whistles about that, and I really, please don't take him. I really want to keep him there. So for me, Arya getting a chance to play against Showmaker, Perks, even the LA Infinity too. Like, there's a lot of really good international experience that this roster can get. Then bring Gang into the roster again for summer and hopefully make a dent in play-ins, which is where we really want a result because we have never had a group stage before, and that'd be really awesome. So expectations for the event, DFM probably going to get rolled, but it doesn't matter as long as they take the experience and use that well.
Yeah, and I think that is something that many people who field rookies are looking forward to. Okay, we're going to get them that experience, that international experience, because it changes a lot. Now, I do want to talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the team as well. You touched a bit on the set in the top lane, who is which is incredibly strong for them. But let's start with the weaknesses. What are potential stumbling blocks, especially for this team where even if there is a difference in level of play compared to international veterans, where you could say, okay, but even for the expectation that were set, that could be a stumbling block for Detonation FocusMe.
Okay, so what are their weaknesses? I don't have a kazoo on hand. I have an automaton, which is an equally annoying instrument. This is genuinely awful. I won't play it for you.
No,
but, their support of kazoo is... Well, he's sure something. He is the coin flip player. He's kind of like our lone VCS player where he'll just choose to fight. It doesn't matter what he's fighting over. He's the kind of player where if he can see that he can land a headbutt pulverize onto 4 or 5 members, he's always going to go for it. And that's led to some really awkward moments at times. It's also led to some godlike engages because the rest of his team is good enough that they can immediately follow up and kind of continue that fight. In fact, in the finals, we kind of saw both sides of this, where we saw that DFM's bot lane and particularly Kazu were getting ganked at 3 minutes by the jungler pretty much every game. Game 2, that led to a really awkward situation because they ended up having a strong CV2 early and then getting ganked and then losing that. But then you also get games like Game 3 and Game 4 in the finals where Kazu is arguably the MVP of those games because his set engages were that good.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I'm really worried about because he's not particularly strong in lane either. Occasionally he'll just go in and die, but and against bot lanes like Cloud9's, like Damwon, these top teams in across the world really. And by the way, an LGL team has never faced a first seed from another region, so that could also be a bit of a wake-up call for our poor Japanese lads. But particularly the weaknesses.
Reigning world champion, nothing big.
Kazu is a player, and then also the fact that DFM. Well, I mean, this is kind of a larger point about the league as well. It seemed like when they lost, they kind of lost to themselves. We talked about that arrogance in that Sengoku draft when they lost in the regular season. That's kind of been the story of when they have lost. They lost a game in the finals 2 to V3, and that's because they were trying to fight around a mid lane 2v2 of Hecarim Cassidy before level 6, which is one of like the weakest points in the game. And they chose to do that anyway. They fought, they lost, and they lost the game. DFM's problems, if any, are Kazu and just their arrogance. So we'll see how that works out on the international stage.
All right, now we do also have to talk about their strengths. You did say, okay, the expectations are low, but I think what many people enjoy, especially when watching play-ins and worlds, is seeing these minor regions come out maybe with some wacky strats. You've mentioned them before, where they get maybe a bit arrogant, but that is something where they can maybe throw a curveball. So what are strengths of DFM heading into MSI, and what are maybe some curveballs we can expect?
They are mechanically the best LGL players we have ever produced. Ebby, if you remember back to 2019 Worlds, he's solo killed Vizicachi on Splice. This guy is legit. He's a really good top laner. And he's up in Grandmaster, Korean solo queue ladder as well. And then the other, so for me, a lot of it is about the mechanical strength. A lot of that comes through their laning phase. Ebby has one of the lowest CS per minutes of all top laners. In fact, he has the lowest CS per minute, but he also has the highest CS difference at 15. What he does is he fights you so you can never get CS, and it doesn't matter if he misses anything, he'll just take that win. He just makes you get even less than he does, which is just, I find that so funny. And really, for me, the biggest strength of this team is Arya, this mid laner, which is why it's so important to get this guy international experience. We can kind of bring this to bear at play-ins if he can't do it at MSI. This guy is a 1,000 LP Korean challenger. He has played against all of your top Korean pros in solo queue. He was picked up because he was scouted from that. This split, he didn't even have to pick up his power picks of Silas and LeBlanc, 2 of his most successful champions ever. He's never played this split, he has not played a champion more than 3 times, so he's had a very wide champion pool, and he has 5 champions with over 500 DPM. He is just crapping out damage on whatever.
That's quite a bit of damage,
Yeah, he has a 51 KDA on Seraphine, so he doesn't even have to be the solo carry. He can pick up whatever he wants. Before this split, we were kind of worried that Oh, if he has to play control mages, maybe there'll be an issue. It hasn't been. He just plays everything. He plays it very well. He crushes lane. He's a great team fighter. And the rest of DFM are really good team fighters too. Utapon in the bot lane is similar kind of affair where he'll just play everything, and he's probably the most consistent player in our region too. It doesn't matter how his support's doing in Kazu, because occasionally he does, do bad things. He'll always be relevant, always be a team fight carry. His Kai'Sa is excellent. His Xayah is excellent. Pretty much everything is. He's one of the best Ezreal players in terms of stats worldwide too. So every one of these players has their power picks, has their laning advantages, and they kind of slot together into this real big, brawling, skirmishing team fight team, which just really just tears you apart if their laning phase goes well.
All right. Well, I think we have a good perspective on Detonation FocusMe heading into the tournament. Nymaera, thank you very much for joining. Is the LGL unofficial channel going to be providing MSI coverage as well?
Well, we're thinking about that bits and pieces. We might be doing like live viewing, so you can kind of hear our opinions on whether we're doing very well or very badly. And we'll keep doing our podcast as well, so we do that on a weekly basis.
All right, thank you very much for joining me again, Nymaera, and I look forward to seeing what you guys have to say about Detonation FocusMe performance at MSI once the tournament finally gets rolling.